Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's great to see so many of you returning to our DTS series after the break. I hope you had some relaxing days and a little bit of time off before we jump directly into the daily business. This is why we have chosen as well for this webinar a topic which is not directly related to energy trading, but I think it appeals to many of you. Otherwise, you would not join here. And I think it's a good time at the beginning of the year to think about mental health today and discuss that with our guest. We all professionals and think we are masters of our job and everything under control. But if there's one thing, then it's that this crisis is teaching us somehow that there's not everything under control and things are changing in a way that some of us do struggle. It's the first time we have this session here from my home office, not from the real office. And I can just say for myself, my home office consists of 7 people, 3 in homeschooling, 2 recovering from COVID right now, and my wife trying to keep everything together. So, and I run enmacc at the same time. So this is craziness here at home. And sometimes we are losing sanity. But it's not about me, it's about you. And it's about our guest, which is Paula Brandt. She's not only an experienced manager with a background Microsoft and Accenture, but she's as well the founder of Go for the 100, which is a consulting firm dedicated to fast-growing companies. And she's one of these lateral thinkers who's connecting the dots of our time and trying to make sense out of that, and an expert on the mental health topic and how that relates to our jobs and our environment. So I'm super happy to have her. And Paula, pleasure to have you on the webinar, and I directly hand over to you, eager to listen to your presentation.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jens. Can you hear me now?
Now you're on.
That's very lovely. A warm welcome to everybody, and I start my presentation now. Let's see if it works. Can you see it? Are you fine? Can you see it?
Yes, we can. All fine.
Okay, this is brilliant. Yeah, the title today is No Worries, Why Mental Health is the Key for Every Trader's Success. And it sounds a bit like a secret, doesn't it? Why it is the key for every trader's success. I promise you on my last screen, which is in 20 minutes, I have a little secret revealed, but you have to stay to the end, I have to say. Well, okay, let's go through the presentation right now. I really like this subtitle, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. Thank you for Natalie Seelmann. She's the marketing manager of enmacc, and it was her suggestion with that title. And I think it's really tough times. Jens, I didn't know your people were recovering from COVID. Wow, this is, well, I wish you all the best, but that shows really how tough the times are. And we really need, I think, something inspiring, little ideas, some hints and tools. And I'm trying to really not make this talk boring, right? But give you some entertaining examples. I have a little quiz prepared, and maybe you get something how you can kind of lift up your spirit and get, well, to some mental sanity or resilient, right? And well, where are you listening from? A quick question to you. Are you in your home office or are you in the office? When I talk to people, I usually find that they're divided. Like one half is really liking to work from home and the other literally hate it. And it really puts them under stress. And this is what leads over to today's topic. For what we see is that stress-related health issues are really rising in the workplace. A lot of people complain that they have tight deadlines, which they can't meet. They feel they have like to prove themselves, right? And this is what this webinar is about, how you can create a psychologically healthy workplace. But what each of you can do, I think this is most important. I have some very doable little kind of hints, right? And what a company should do, right? And so let's start. When you look at this, I took it from a famous German magazine. why is the subject of mental health so relevant and popular? This is taken from a German magazine. It's about SAP, the software company, and they're very good in mindfulness in the workplace. They even have a director for a mindfulness practice. I thought that particularly interesting. And each employee, and I mean, they are quite a big corporation, can join a program and kind of get a little education in mindfulness. And I have to say, I don't know how you feel, but I'm an absolutely non-esoteric person. And SAP, they start each meeting with a 2-minute sort of little meditation, right? So they focus on the current moment. You see them sitting there. This is before a meeting takes place. And I think it's quite good, actually, if that sounds unfamiliar to you, to kind of try it out. In fact, I had an 8-hour webinar 2 days ago, and that started with a 5-minute mini meditation, and I was skeptical, but in fact, I have to say I enjoyed it rather. And this is why I would like you to start with a small exercise. I've prepared something for that. Let's move on to the next screen. The heartbeat, the pulse. Let me explain it. When I worked with Microsoft still, we talked a lot about the heartbeat of a project, or the heartbeat, the pulse of an initiative. And so please ask yourself these 2 questions. Why have you joined today's webinar? And what interests you about the topic? And I would like you to share that, if you like, to invite you to share it in the Q&A session. And I have a little heartbeat sound prepared. Just take a minute to think of it, right? Let's see if the heartbeat works. Jens, can you hear the heartbeat? You can't? Okay, then you have to think of the heartbeat. Okay, but these 2 questions, I'm really curious what interests you about the topic. Okay, let's move on. What we do in the next minutes, couple of very few facts and figures on mental health, and I'd like to share some experiences, and they are real life experiences from the workplace. And then let's look at the practical side, so that you get sort of a little tool set of what you can do personally and what you could ask of your company. Okay. So why is the topic so important? And this is commonplaces if I kind of tell you the arguments, right? So it's that the war of talent, it's really that the most qualified really can choose amongst the good jobs. And I know in these Corona times, some starters in the job, they find it hard to find like good jobs at the moment, but be sure in summer we will see that it shifts again, right? And the second biggest argument about it is that we all need creativity in the workplace in order to kind of be ahead of the game in the competition. And when you are creative, this is not if everything is tensed and if you work with people you don't like and you don't feel accepted and respected. So this is why the topic of mental health is so important. And when we talk about facts on stress-related health issues, did you know that some researchers say that 95% of back pains, that they're really from stress? I find that very interesting. And when the stress level decreases, you see that back pains are kind of going down. I have a real life sample myself. I worked with a company owner who's in e-commerce, and they had a quite intense Christmas business. And when it was done at New Year's Eve, he was going skiing and he was on a hut. And very interesting, he was drinking his coffee, and all of a sudden he realized, like I'm drinking my tea now, right? That the liquid was pouring down his face. And what had happened, his face actually he couldn't move it anymore. It was all kind of frozen. And so a lot of people see serious stress issues, right? Or cannot sleep anymore. I thought, Jens, you had a webinar already on sleep-related issues, didn't you? So this is no fun, really. I had a guest over during Christmas, and she could not sleep. And when she woke down in the morning, you should have seen her, like her eyes were all wrinkled, and she said during the night she had lain down for 5 hours. So stress-related issues are important. And one thing before we start to be more practical, I really warn you with the one-fits-all sort of approach. There are a lot of gurus on the market, and what they're saying is like, you need to meditate 5 minutes in the morning, and then you need to do this and this. Really be careful. For what works for Jens maybe does not work for me. And it's all about what is right for you, to find that out, if you like, species appropriate. So it's something which really fits for your character. And look at this little tool I prepared for you. Actually, I had a client over yesterday, and she told me her experiences with this little tool. It's a little matrix, and it shows you your stress level. You can rate it. You see it has a green sort of area, it's yellow, and it's a red. It's like a traffic light. And during the day, a typical working day, you can use this tool and ask yourself, what has happened and where kind of would I myself rate myself in stress. And this client yesterday, she said how she uses this tool now when she feels she is on a 6 or on a 7. She has developed a little tool set to calm herself down. And it helps just to have this in mind, to kind of analyze where she stands and then take some relaxing measures. So this is a little thing you might use in order to kind of relieve your stress level. Sharing experiences. The topic is very dear to me. For when I was with Microsoft, I was in a worldwide role. We worked for the Microsoft upper management. And I was flying worldwide. And sometimes this meant flying to 3 different locations in one work week. And it means 6 times flying. And in the morning, I would not know where I was, in which city I was. Nonetheless, and I don't know how many of you are like that as well, I started a doctorate in parallel in my spare time. I didn't reduce my Microsoft hours, I did it on top. And my mind really liked it. And I thought, well, I'm so happy that I can do it. And I enjoyed it. But my body did not. And what I just said about this girl's sleeping issues, I really had a sort of very serious crisis with sleeping issues as well. It's totally disappeared now, but it showed me that you really should pay attention to what your body tells you. And for the Q&A session, I know this is a sensitive subject, but maybe some of you like to share experience and discuss as well. And I have a little tool prepared. It's called the camera eye technique. What might help? It's all about what you're doing to yourself and to your life, right? And the camera eye technique asks you, it works like that. For instance, Jens might say the family, I hope this is not Jens, so yeah. Jens might say the family is most important factor in my life, okay? So I would tend to believe him, like Jens just talked about his family and homeschooling. But what I would suggest, if a camera would film every minute of his day, right? And literally, I mean every minute, what would this camera see? Would you see Jens sharing a lot of time, spending time with his family? Or would the camera see a Jens who works starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, is in a board meeting, and who stops like at 10 o'clock at night, And if it was not Corona, who works from the office and then returns home, does not see his children, well, almost never. And on the weekend, Jens would work too. Then camera eye has shown what's really your most important value in the workplace, isn't it? It's work, it's not your family. And you might use this tool in order to kind of analyze what's going on in your life. And I said, happy to discuss if you have some experiences with that already. Mental health in the workplace. When I talked about this SAP meditation, do you like such things, or are you like me and saying this is a bit esoteric? And do you try it out nonetheless? It's interesting for when I work with company owners, a lot of them join entrepreneurs programs. And I'm really shocked sometimes how strict they are. They oblige you in the morning to meditate, they call it priming, a couple of minutes, right, to read a given number of books per week, or to write a self-talk journal, and even to hand it in to the program owners. I find that really shocking, for this is so tight. For me, it would not fit. Think about yourself, how you would like it. And I think it's a lot more important to kind of approach this from a different angle. The Simon Sinek thing, the most important is golden circle. I think most of you will know it. It's all starting with your why, with Jens being the little role model for us, right? If you're saying your family is your why, I always find when you have a mission for which you live, for which you work, it's a lot easier. And each of us can have it, even if your job is a lorry driver, right? Still, you might have something for which you do the thing. And when I'm in coachings with my clients, they're really impressed by this little quotation, and I'd like to share it, give it like a little present to you. This is the true joy in life, being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. See, a purpose which you yourself think is important. This is right for me. I'm of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. And as long as I live, it's my privilege to do for it what I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. It lifts up my spirit. I really hope it lifts up your spirit too. I would want to make you this little present. And so start with the why. Why are you doing your work? And then there are some little tools in the right-hand side of the screen. What drives you? Commit 100%. I have a little example which I find enlightening. It was a secretary. She was hating her work, for she thought it was boring. What she was not doing was committing herself 100%. And when she was in coaching, after the coaching, what she did was she brought a little plant, which she brought to the workplace, which she put right next to her monitor. And when next time a colleague approached her, she was all helpful, was going the extra mile. And that really changed her entire work experience. So even if you think you're in a very intense job as a trader, right? Or sometimes you have tasks which you don't like to work on. Commit yourself 100% makes all the difference to the work, but preliminarily to you, right? It's a very strong tool. And yeah, maybe one little extra thing, as if, act as if you count it, even if you feel you're not. Act as if you count it. And your body, this is meant with a body meter, will give you the immediate answer, right? For each stress has a sort of representation in your body. When you don't like a thing, I don't know what happens in your body. You might get neck tensions or something. Really learn, this is the SAP approach, to pay attention to what happens in your body. if I could recommend a thing to you, be 80% on the job or what's going on, and the next 20% listen to your body. This is really helpful. Instant stress relief, when you feel it's all tight, what I used to do in my consulting days, they were stressful sometimes, but thankfully there was a toilet nearby. And the toilet is separated, right? Nobody kind of watches you there, very hopefully. So, for instance, little breathing exercises are quickly done and they're helpful. If you, for instance, breathe in, what helps in breathing out, just throw out, stick out your tongue as much as you can while breathing out. Try this if nobody watches, right? This is a lot. This is already relieving a lot. And maybe later on we can talk about some more sort of tips and tricks. When I was with Microsoft, we had presentations in front of like 1,000 people. And this is the initial stress you're having. But there are very simple kind of little things you can do in order to relieve your stress level. Mental health in the workplace. What can the company do? Interesting enough. So this is, I'm writing a new book, which comes out mid of the year. I have seen some bosses, company owners, and their people, they would kind of throw themselves into the fire for them. And this is amazing. And what makes such a great leader? And this is one of the most interesting topics. And in Germany, people are very keen about soccer. I don't know if Jens, if you are in soccer, I'm not, yeah, me neither. Jürgen Klopp, you know, of course, Liverpool. And if you have the chance, do some Googling on Jürgen Klopp. It's interesting how he works his team. So I guess very different from the Schalke game now in Germany. It's all genuine trust in his people and really kind of talking to them, working to them, giving them a lot of warmth in the workplace. And this is an interesting recipe, even if you're in a larger corporation, but still people, they quit their job because of you as a boss or because of their bosses and not because they dislike the entire corporation. And so there's a lot you can do, even in Corona times when you're in a home office. It's showing genuine interest, genuine care for your employees. And there are tips and little rituals by which you can shape the culture. And we don't have this much of time, but maybe in the Q&A session, we could throw in some sort of samples on that and give you some inspiration. For this is really interesting. And there's a lot you can do even if in Corona times, even when you're 100% remote and digital, you can make an entire difference to your workplace. Before we go into the Q&A session, if pictures could speak, Jens, maybe you could use your micro and tell me who is that? Or let's throw it into the audience.
Someone else wants to answer. I've seen the solution. So.
You have seen the solution. Maybe we ask it to the audience. Who is that? Is some chat coming in?
Not on this one.
Oh. Then I throw in the next picture. Who's that?
So Melania is coming here. Yeah, Robert.
Say Melania. Interesting. I'm sure I couldn't do this. Well, we promised not to talk about Trump today. Let's don't do that. But I don't think such a picture exists of him, isn't it, in these two stages? Next one. The next one's easier. Who's that?
Yeah, that's Moti. Yeah?
That's Moti. Yeah. For the English, how would you describe Moti?
It's Merkel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is how we know her usually. And you see the difference. I was talking about genuine warmth in the workplace. This is really an important topic for people tend to work so much better, so much lighter if they really enjoy what they are doing, if they enjoy their team spirit, their working environment. And in my coaching, I have a little sort of quotation which people find surprising, but which inspires them. It's not religious, but it's interesting. Tough people will make it through tough times because angels can fly because they can take themselves lightly. And in these Corona times, if we would kind of not conserve our humor and our good spirit, we wouldn't make it. And this is really my sort of, well, what I wish you can kind of bring to your workplace, which you can bring to these times, that we lighten up. We will have a great sort of coming out of these times in summer, and we will get through this, right? And now in the Q&A, ask Jens, ask me for practical samples, and let's have a very great Q&A. Thank you.
Excellent, Paula. Thanks a lot. A good introduction to the topic. And we have already received some questions, which all go in a very, I can say, practical direction. So one question was, you mentioned at Microsoft giving these huge presentations, and I have to say myself, I'm not a big fan of it. So any tricks and tips, how can you get stress relief before a presentation? What do you recommend?
In 2011, I was doing a 1-year sort of program with the German Speaker Association, and we learned a lot of tips and tricks. Can you see me here? Then I need to kind of get more kind of body related. All of which I show you now, you should really not do in front of other people, right? Go to a kind of secluded room, or maybe your toilet if it has space enough. It's called the gorilla exercise. For what happens when you get into stress, a very common pattern, your kind of back and your, how do you call your bum muscles, okay? They kind of tend to get very fixed. So what you do is called the gorilla exercise, and don't laugh at me now, Jens, right? Don't, okay? This is really what you do. You kind of shake your entire body, right? And really, really shake it through. I know this sounds crazy, but you will see what a difference it means. For it's really your back muscles is this part here, where the tension is almost relieved and gone. And in the audience, try it. I mean, you may try it now or when you need it, but this is something that really helps.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, please give us more questions in this direction with very practical examples. I think that's best for everyone. There's one more, I read it directly to you. If you're leading a team, what are some strategies, activities for stress relief? Do you have examples, especially for online, remote? So you as a leader of the team, what can you do?
Well, first, remember what I said, that there's no one-fits-all sort of methodology. For this comes back now from my Microsoft times, and I'm sure, Jens, you know this as well, working with programmers. Some of them are really, they don't like this much of communication. And when I owned my own IT company, I was optimistic, and I had some very interactive exercises for my team. And it was not a good success, for I hadn't respected their sort of characteristics, right? So always take this in mind. What works well when you're a remote leader? You sort of have to find a way to translate this genuine care, this warmth, to the digital interactions. And I know what companies are doing. They're doing random sort of encounters with employees when they are larger corporations. Or all of you know these virtual cafes, right? It works to an extent if people have known themselves beforehand. It's actually quite difficult for, I'm not a fan of totally replacing every interaction by virtual sort of encounters. And it's a second best at the moment. Try all these formats. Maybe Jens, at the end of the webinar, you can kind of send something out to the participants who like some sort of manuals on that, right?
Sure.
Can share that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. I have read one comment and I try to turn it into a question. I think we all feel that there's so much negative influences which have the power to drag us down, to basically absorb.
Look at those guys there.
And
Look
everything.
at those. I know what this. Look at, yeah, well, we
Yeah.
didn't want to get political, I promised. Okay.
How do you shield yourself? How do you keep these negative influences away? And how do you decide what is now, what can you just take out of your mind and where you have to deal with, actually? Yeah.
Very, very good question. And maybe it's a pity I can't see the guy who's asked it. I really like to see her or him and look her or him in the face. When I look around myself in my nearby surroundings, and I'm sure this is the same with you, I only see love, right? Mostly. I see great people smiling back at me, people helping me. When I drop something, I can't even pick it up, for some guy has already handing it back to me. And this is so much in contrast to what we see on the media, what's happening in the US now, what's there with all the corona issues. And I have to say, I even have it with my mother. I called her up this morning. She's now 70. I can't do the calculation, 70 something, right? And she's so negative about what's going on with corona. It's very hard to listening to her and lift her up. What can you do in order to kind of get lighter? And in my eyes, it's really focus on this, what is around you. For this is where you can make the immediate impact. It's in this moment, it's when I see Jens now, whom I really like on the screen. I haven't met him in person, but he's smiling back at me. This is nice. So I really, really take my satisfaction from these little encounters and what's around me. And of course, there are tools, like when you're lying in bed or even before you kind of go sleeping, write down like the 5 things for which you're grateful. This is commonplace advice. But overall, don't focus just on the sort of negative events which you see in the media. Focus on your nearest environment and commit yourself 100%. You remember this, and act as if you do this, I give you a guarantee you will immediately improve your surroundings.
Yeah. So focus on the things you can control, and basically neglect whatever is out of your control anyway.
To be honest, when all this corona started, we want to talk honestly here. I had times, I'm coming from Schleswig-Holstein, I'm coming from the Baltic Sea. This is very peaceful there. And whenever I go to the forest, I spend a lot of time in nature, right? Always the thought comes to me, these trees have been here since 50 years and they will be here, hopefully, if the climate change is not coming, in the next 20 years, right? And this gives me immediate peace. And I feel, shouldn't I just kind of live in the forest? It's not possible for all of us. So we have to translate it into our everyday. But let's do it. It's necessary.
Mm-hmm. I think we get here one very interesting question. I don't know if you can answer that, but there's someone saying there's a lot of written communication right now happening around us. We have more time maybe to read. And this person feels that we interpret things in a more negative way than we would do in a personal communication. So maybe it's more serious, or can you relate to that? Do you see these patterns as well, that we react differently to this written negative communication than just the interpersonal one?
It's the missing of context, I would say, right? When you read something, what you are missing is the sender sort of mimic, the sort of the energy which flows through us when we really talk, right? For even now I'm seeing Jens, but would I be face to face with him, I would really kind of get a lot more. And I think this is what explains why written communication, with all this lack of content information, is so leading us to negativity. And in the economic theory, we have a whole branch that is called biases. And it's very, very good to kind of be aware, to kind of understand what they are and reflect. Remember, 80% is on what you're reading, on what you're doing in the moment. 20% is on your body and on maybe your knowledge of those biases as well. With that, you can manage.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Picking up here another question. Two questions going, or several actually, going in the direction meditation. You mentioned it, it's not for everyone, but are there specific techniques or as well yoga you could recommend? And how can we maybe, getting a little bit the questions here together, integrate that as well in the workplace? Is that something you do privately or, yeah?
Yeah, let's answer this in two parts. For meditation, I'm an interesting sort of guy to comment on that. For I'm in the Asperger spectrum, right? So like many maybe people are, it helps you when you need to find the sort of, how would you say, the one sort of restraint, regardless of how many information are there. When you're Asperger, you see it. But meditation is interesting, for I don't have the problem like you guys very likely do. My head is usually empty. I have nothing in my head, right? So what I need more than anything is reduce external sort of, how would I say, stimulus. Then I'm fine. Usually with guys in the workplace, it's the other way around. It's what they call, what Buddhists call the ape spirit, that you yourself think those, I think it's 70,000 thoughts per day, and yet you can't focus on one thought, but when you do it, you have like 20 other streams entering your head. And when the audience now ask for what is a good sort of recommendation, all of us meditate all the time. And I think it's one of the biggest prejudices that you need to sit down in this sort of lotus seat and Buddhist way, and you meditate for 30 hours, you have your little alarm clock set or whatever. Relax, give yourself 5 minutes, just kind of lock your door. I've locked my door now for this presentation. And just do what you like, look at your kind of whatever, your little magazine. It will work, I think, in little steps that you can sort of, when you start with 5 minutes, just doing nothing, then you will see you come to the bigger sort of meditation areas.
Yeah, for many, it works through sports as well, where it's meditation, but it's yeah.
It's this focus then, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm really allergic to, when I talked about this entrepreneurs program, that's a horror, you know, that somebody obliges me, well, best at like 5 o'clock in the morning, to sit down on my cushion in my lotus seat and to meditate. Oh my God, don't.
Yeah. And there's one more question I would like to pick up. I think it's interesting. You shared this little tool with the different colors and to assess your state of mind, I would say. And I mean, it comes to the point, how do you realize that you really have a stress-related problem? I mean, there are definitely some points where it's too late, but is there a way how to assess yourself or others can? And to add on that, there was felt here or shared the idea of whenever someone reads these kind of publications around stress and mental health, that drags you down already. You feel already that you're suffering from it. How do you get to level yourself and know where you are?
Well, first place, you can, the external sort of view, right? You can see stress. All of us, this is from our sort of human heritage. We see stress and notice stress in others, for we needed that to survive. When somebody in my near surroundings was stressed and was tensed, I needed to know it, for obviously there was some danger coming around the corner. Okay, So you will see if I'm relaxed now, or you will see if I'm under stress. And a lot of us are what we call somatizers. Have you heard that word?
No.
Somatizer, no. For instance, they would go, if I lift my my turtleneck, you would see like little sort of spots, red spots on my, if I was stressed, on my throat, right? So others will see stress, and if they don't see the physical sign, I guarantee you they feel it. That's the energy thing, right? Internally with a tool, the biggest mistake you can do is to focus 100% on what you're doing in the moment, okay? For this is exactly when you won't notice your stress level. It's again this 80% on the job, but 20% on what's happening on your body. Just when we are talking now, I reserved that. I've trained that after my breakdown with the sleeping issues with Microsoft. I've trained all that, right? And I would say I'm a master in that now, and it helps. 20% is on yourself, and then you won't fall into these traps anymore.
Yeah, I think you touched upon that, and there's one question which continues this discussion, I think, in a nice way. If you're not aware of yourself, your stress level, maybe your colleagues will not tell you, even if it's visible. So how much do you bring your stress and your well-being to your home, basically? How you stress at home? Do you keep it at the workplace, even if it's the home office, or how much do you share it with your closer family and friends? Yeah. So how would you deal with that?
Another interesting question was where there's no one fits all. What I'm really against is like an environment where you get too personal, in my opinion, but this may be just me. Work is work and should be work. Mm-hmm. Don't confuse, like in many startups, your working colleagues with your friends. You should have other friends. For this is a very interesting truth. Jobs might change. They are not forever, but you should have friends which don't change, like your family, right? So this is another important thing. In the workplace, how much sort of familiarity you allow or how much insights you give to your colleagues, this is very due to the culture. And me being probably a very specific person with my Asperger, I sense when there's a trust environment and I open up, right? So you should be like a mirror. You should first kind of get these little sort of energy streams and feel what's going on. And if it's worth sharing, but always keep that border, I'd say, this sort of not forgetting that this is work.
Yeah. I think there's one example here connected as well to the home office, which is kind of the prototype, I think many feel, at least I hear it a lot. So when you're in home office, these ideas coming up that you think others think you are lazy, you're not working enough, which leads to the reaction that yourself put even more work into it, more hours, overdoing it sometimes, blurring as well the lines with the private life. So that is a stress. What others do think about me when I'm not visible at home, is that a serious issue, or is that something where you say just temporary? don't worry about others?
It's a lot about the culture in your corporation. Mm-hmm. When I started with Microsoft in 2007, I was surprised. I was flying to Munich, and there was the guy who was giving me my introduction to my job, right? And it was, I think, 2:00. And that guy said, bye now. My little son, he will turn 8 years and I need to go to his birthday. Mm-hmm. And I was all surprised, for then I was sitting in the office alone and I thought, so what? But what happened was that after hours, Johannes was his name, he sat till midnight and continued his work, a part which I could not see. And this is important to all of you. What becomes visible to your colleagues externally might not be what you yourself do, right? And how can you work that yourself? it's again, it depends on the trust level in your company. And this is a task of the manager to really create this environment of genuine concern. And I have a great example of a working mom. She was single parent, okay? And she was in a big software company. And in those first Corona weeks, I think in April, she saw she couldn't do the work anymore with all the homeschooling. I think, Jens, you agree, right? And what she did, she sat all crying in front of her manager and said, well, I absolutely, there's no way for me how I can do the work, right? And the manager really, what did he say? He said, well, no worries. This is the title of our webinar. He said, no worries. The team absolutely will stand in. And you can imagine how much this motivated her. This leader had the best employee ever just by his little behavior.
Yeah. But on the other side, turning as well a little back to this question, there are people who simply enjoy continuing more than before, spending more time, can meet friends, you can go out to sports as well as limited. So some people enjoy themselves actually giving even more time. You see, this is something, a route someone should take, or is it this finally ending in some stress problems you not foresee at the moment of joy, maybe?
It's, for instance, Jens, if you were a circle, right, you would never fit into a square. And of course, in a workplace, you have to respect the culture and you behave in a sort of given way, like the way your culture is shaped. But still, one of the most important things for your personal happiness and stress level is know who you are, right? Like with my little peculiarity, can't say that word, right? What is particular? I need an absolute reduction of sort of external stimulus. And when you know that, you can a lot better handle your kind of environment and be absolutely successful, but you need to respect who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yes, fully with you. I mean, look, there are so many techniques around, and very often you get the messages in these, do these 3 things to become more happy, you know, these kind of lists type, it's so easy to do it. How do you approach all that? I mean, there may not always be nonsense. There's some truth, it may work for some, but how do you approach that? You said it's not a one size fits all. You simply tested yourself, or what do you recommend? How do you? Yeah?
There was a time in before I had my own company in my last Microsoft year, where I really, after I had this stress-related issue, I skipped my doctorate. That was another courage thing, right? So, but I didn't gain much time, for I invested it in testing out everything I could do. I, for instance, tried a clown seminar week, right? For instance, and I was in a, how would I say that? In an actors school in Hamburg, and tried a 1 week sort of class there. And you don't imagine how much that helped. If you look in totally different areas and test out the techniques, oh wow, that really throws you ahead. If we had more time, I could show you samples that would blow you away. And they are so simple, but they just come from totally different areas than from our business context. And still they are so useful. Test that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's not the easy things, but you need to get out of your comfort zone to really feel if it's.
That was very much out of the comfort zone, but you may laugh about me, but being a clown or a pantomime, how do you call that, where you don't have your voice, when you want to be funny and you want to be funny, I guarantee you, you're not funny. But this is something, when you get completely empty, then you're funny. People will laugh at you. And this is one of the best training you can have in the workplace, like when you have a tensed meeting.
Yeah.
Interesting techniques.
We have to come to an end. Time is running really fast today. I think it's a great topic, and many of you expressed as well here in the Q&As that you would love to have some follow-up information. maybe Paula, you find a way to I don't know, send out some links or some ideas, something where we can follow up. I think there's a real need for that, for what I see here, and definitely we cannot cover everything. So I have to thank you and as well the audience for a very eager and active participation. That's what we like, and happy to see such a good resonance as well on this specific topic, which will stay with us for the next weeks. While we, on the 2 weeks time, we jump again on a classical topic. We'll have Lawson Steele again on this webinar to look into the emissions markets. Different topic, anyway important, and hope to see many of you back. We'll send out first time kind of a survey as well to all participants to find out a little bit what you like and what kind of topics you would love to discuss in the future. Thanks for participating, and I hope to see you all again. Paula, big thank you. It was a great.
Thanks to everybody. If you want some tips and hints, connect me on LinkedIn. I'm best on LinkedIn. My assistant will kind of take care of that. But what I want to kind of wish you all, don't get discouraged in these times. They are dark. It's another, I don't know if Angela Merkel says it, like 12 weeks, but then this will be just hilarious. Okay, I guarantee you that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Jens.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a great day.